and welcome to East Point. That was called I Wasn't Quite Ready Yet. But we are glad now that you are here. We're glad for those watching online. And I'd like to invite you all to rise with us as we worship.
Stories of what they think you're like, but I've heard the tender whisper of love, the dead of night, and you tell me that you're pleased and that I'm never alone. You're a good, good father. It's who you are, it's who you are, it's who you are. I'm loved by you. It's who I am, it's who I am, it's who I am.
I've seen many searching for answers, far and wide, but I know we're all searching for answers. Only you provide, 'cause you know just what we need before you say a word.
You're a good, good
Father,
It's who you are,
it's who you are,
it's who you are.
and I'm loved by you. It's who I am, it's who I am, it's who I am.
You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us. So undeniable, I can hardly speak. He's so unexplainable, I can hardly think as you call me. Deeper still as you call me. Deeper still as you call me. Deeper still into love. Love, you're good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are. I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are. I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are. I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. Are you hurting and broken within? Overwhelmed by the weight of sin? Jesus is calling. Have you come to the end of yourself? Do you thirst for a drink from the well? Jesus is calling. Oh, come to the altar. The Father's arms are open wide. Forgiveness was bought with the precious blood of Jesus Christ. Leave behind your regrets and mistakes. Come today, there's no reason to wait. Jesus is calling. Bring your sorrows, drink them for joy. From the ashes, a new life is born. Jesus is calling. Oh, come to the altar. The Father's arms are open wide. Forgiveness was bought with the precious blood of Jesus Christ. Oh, come to the altar. The Father's arms are open wide. Forgiveness was bought with the precious blood of Jesus Christ. Oh, what a Savior! Isn't He wonderful? Sing hallelujah! Christ is risen. Bow down before Him, for He is Lord of all. Sing hallelujah! Christ is risen.
You guys sound great. Lift it up.
Oh, what a Savior! Isn't He wonderful? Sing hallelujah! Christ is risen. Bow down before Him, for He is Lord of all. Sing hallelujah! Christ is risen. Oh, come to the altar. The Father's arms are open wide. Forgiveness was bought with the precious blood of Jesus Christ. Oh, come to the altar. The Father's arms are open wide. Forgiveness Bear your cross as you wait for the crown. Tell the world of the treasure you found.
You guys sound great out there. It's the first time in a little while that I think I've really noticed the singing, so that's great. You guys have energy. We thought we would end with a new song for this worship set. Usually I put them first, but this is just a big, energetic song. So feel free to clap. I'm going to try and clap along as much as I can, except when I need to play my bass. But just enjoy this song. It's one that you can clap. You can move around a little bit. Stay socially distanced, obviously, but, you know, feel free to move around if you know it. It's pretty energetic. We are really glad to have you all here right now. For those of you online, we're glad for you as well. We just hope that this feels like just a church of fellowship here. I know we can't do a normal, greeting. We haven't been able to do that in a while, but like as Josh is coming, here he is. I was going to say, take a look around, shout out to those near you, and say hi. And we've got Josh here for some announcements.
Arms are a little tired. We're really glad you're here this morning. If you're online with us, we're really glad that you're there with us as well. It's really cool this morning to see all of our physically distanced pods full of people and hear the worship and the praise and seeing the physically distanced fellowship. It's been a really great morning already, and it's one of the reasons why I love East Point. I love Sundays is because getting to come here and praise and worship with all of you is just the highlight of my week. So this morning, as we're here, we're going to take our offering. We do it in a physically distanced way. So as you came in, there are baskets on the table by the door. You can also drop your offering into one of the boxes on the back wall. And you can also give online. And so if you're online with us, you can give at eastpoint.org/give. You can do so there. You can do it so at any time. You can select the fund that you want the offering to go to. And then, as we've been talking about, there is an other you can put in there. And if you'd like to donate to those who need it, you can do so as well. And also, as always, as we like to remind you, if you can't give, that's okay. And we're here with you. If you need help, you can reach out to the church, and we can find ways to help you. There's never a shortage of people willing to step up and help. And as we've said before, that there was someone that donated or pledged to donate up to $10,000 of matched funds to help those in need during this time. And so if you're in that situation, it's okay. And know that someone's there to help you. But before we take the offering, I just would like to pray and ask God to bless it for us. God, this morning we're grateful, God, and we're just excited and we're happy to be here with you. We ask that you would please just bless East Point, God, as we're in the season of change. We're in the season of new and different. You would just please be with us, guide us, give us the wisdom and strength we need, God. We ask today that you would just be with the offering received. You would just take those funds, you would multiply them. They would go to impact the ministries here at East Point, God, and through our partners throughout the world. And again, we are just grateful and happy to be here this morning in your presence. Hear me pray. Amen. Just a couple of quick announcements. We just want to reiterate, we've talked about this the last couple of weeks, but we have a YouTube page. It's East Point Community Church DE, and we would love, if you haven't yet, to go and find this on YouTube and click subscribe. And what happens is you'll get notified when our services launch, when our music videos launch. And music videos, it's music to words. But we've been working really hard to create a avenue for those of you who might not be able to be here on Sunday, those of you who like the worship we do here. And so there are a couple different playlists. There's a playlist that you can select, and it will actually play the different services that we have every week. There's a playlist for music. So John and team have been building playlists for music. I think there are 22 songs. He calls them the COVID sessions. And so if you go to YouTube and select COVID sessions, there's 22 of the songs we do here on Sunday morning recorded by the band. And then we also have a house or a property playlist, so you can actually go, and if you haven't had a chance to get to the new property yet, you can actually click on the playlist and see the videos where we did a house tour, a property tour, and just some really cool stuff. There's more to come. So if you haven't yet, go to YouTube, East Point Community Church DE, and click subscribe, and more content to come. And then we've been talking about this as well for the past couple of weeks, but there are a lot of opportunities to volunteer. Right now, we do not have any major events planned in the next few weeks, but that doesn't mean things aren't happening. And so we've asked you if you're willing to, if you're here in person or if you're online and you would like to host a virtual small group, you can reach out to me, Josh at eastpoint.org, and I can get you set up with a Google account, which will allow you to schedule video conferences, and you can have virtual time. I know that I've heard a lot of great feedback. There's a group that meets at 9 a.m. on Sunday mornings to do prayer, and a few of the folks have gotten to dial in from that. And it really helps go a long way with that connection and community. And so if you'd like to be a part of that and do that, please reach out. There's always opportunities at the new property for demolition and renovation. As always, every Sunday here, we clean and we sanitize after the service. And then always looking for greeters to help. And then if you need help, if you'd like to help with the teen organizations, we can flip to the next slide. Angel has created an Instagram account for the teens. It's at eastpoint.teens. And so if you have Instagram, it'd be great if you went, even if you weren't a teen, and you give the account a follow. Angel messaged me yesterday and we were chatting. She's starting a new series. It's going to be a digital series starting on Monday, and she's really excited. She said that it has really struck a chord with her, and that she thinks it would be a great impact for not just teens, but young adults alike. And so if you would like to be a part of that, like I said, it doesn't have to be a teenager. And I want to just pull up really quick what she said the first topic was going to be. So the first topic is life and our choices. And so if you would like to be a part of that, and if you're on Instagram, you go to @eastpoint.teens, and you can follow along for that digital series. And also, if you have an Instagram and you haven't followed us, we are at East Point Community Church. And so just like Facebook, we post all of our updates. A lot of the information also gets published to Instagram. And so if you're on the gram, you can find out all of our info there as well. Like I said, if you can't tell, I'm out of breath still. I love that song. It was a lot of fun. I told Naomi this morning that the kids, I was listening to it this week and practicing, and Joshua and Karina are both like, is that the lady from church singing on the radio? It sounds just like her. And I was like, it is. So it's awesome. I love the fact that our music, penetrates your heart, your soul, your mind, and it's cool to hear my kids singing the songs they do here, and I'm sure that your kids do the same. And you probably as an adult do the same thing throughout the week. You find those lyrics that pop into your head. So with that, JD, I know the lyrics always pop into your head, and like you said last week, you've got different things and thoughts it triggers for you. So we'll see what you had this week for us.
That work? I'm just going to leave this thing on until you tell me otherwise, because I'm used to wearing it. But a few technical difficulties, nothing that we can't overcome once I get rid of all of Josh's cooties. All righty. Hey, this is another nice day out there, huh? Little bit of warmth. He's talking about the things that we have to be done. This week, on this past Wednesday, we had, how many of you was it? Like 6? 5, 6? I think it was 6 young people that came to the house. We're doing things. You get a bunch of teenagers, give them a sledgehammer, a crowbar, and things like that, and say, have fun. And having a place where they can actually have fun. It turns out pretty well. So we've been having a faithful crew coming every Wednesday. This last time Morgan came with them. So we got the 5 boys and a girl. They had nothing on her. I mean, she's going at it nice and steady. She's just as tough as any of the guys, doing all the things that were going on. So I told them that they're the unofficial youth group right now for East Point. So if you feel like doing a youth activity, I've got hammers, I've got crowbars, I've even got saws for once your parents leave. So some nicely sharpened chisels, whatever we need. We just do whatever it takes to get the job done. So we're coming along. I thought I should give you a little bit of an update on the house. I've been talking with the architect and an engineer. There's been a lot of things about our initial plans. The fire marshal said, no, we want more. We had to do a survey. So there's been a survey done of what they call it lines and grades, which simply means they find out where all the boundaries are, and they look at the grade where things are up and down, because they have to figure out for water usage and stuff like that. We've had that done. We've got some new plans. In fact, I don't know if Sean's here today or not. I don't see him. He didn't go back. He's not going back, is he? I don't think they're on vacation. I think the whole family. But is he going back to Arizona, or is he? Well, anyways, if you see him before he goes back, he's like a good photographer. I'm going to try to get him out there to do an updated thing for the playlist. That we call it a playlist here for the thing. The playlist for what's going on in the house, because there's been a lot of changes. If you looked at the stuff online, it looks nothing like what it did then. It looks better or worse. I'm not sure which I would say, but it's been demolition going on. We haven't built anything yet. So we'll get you up to date on that. I should have the updated plan from the architect tomorrow, and then I'll be in touch with the engineer, because I need to have the architect and the engineer to take it to the county. If we get through the fire marshal, that's the biggest hurdle really that we have to get through. Then we have to get through the Department of Transportation to make sure our driveway is okay with them. And then we go to the county, And I don't plan on attaching a bribe, so we'll see how quickly we can get through the county. You know, it's just going straight with all of that. We'll find that, oh, this is going out on the internet. I shouldn't say things like that. I don't think our county would ever do anything crooked along those lines. So we'll just move on from there. Anything else I needed to do on announcement-wise? Everything's going good. Now, every week before I come up here, I get my thing set so it's ready to open right where it is. I check it a couple times at my seat to make sure it's still opening to the right spot. I get up here and open it up, and it's closed off of that spot. So we'll see what we got here. You know, we're doing a passage this week. You see, it's just 4 verses. Now, this is Ephesians chapter 6. And for those of you that are kind of new to things like Ephesians, it only has 6 chapters. It means there is light at the end of the tunnel. So we're getting there on Ephesians. This is only the 15th lesson, I think, on Ephesians. Yeah. So we got a few more. We'll probably finish up around 20 or something like that. I don't know. We'll maybe a little shy of 20. We'll see. Because sometimes I have to break it up. Get you caught up with where we've been as we got through chapter 5. Because we got into some family business, but it's also just life people business. We looked at how he says that we are to submit to one another out of reverence for Christ, that there is this mutual submission that's taking place, and that's the general principle he gives to us. And then he gives us specific examples about how is this going to work within a family situation or in a relationship. And it's interesting because, and I didn't highlight this last week, but one of the things he says, I understand people. Now, I know that as guys, we love to joke about the fact, and it's not even really a joke, it's just we kind of admit the fact that we'll never understand women. You know, it's just one of those things. You've heard the story about the guy, God said, you know, yeah, I'm really proud of you. I'm going to give you anything you ask for. He says, I want a highway going from my house to the big island in Hawaii with no stops, no red lights, just straight through so I can get there anytime I want to. He said, that's ridiculous. Ask for something else. He says, I want to understand my wife. He said, do you want 2 lanes or 4 lanes for that highway? You know, as guys, we joke about the fact that it's hard for us to understand women, but God, he understands women. And he understands men. And so as he starts to give us specific examples, he said, you know, you're submit to one another. And he said, women, with your own husbands. Do this with your own husband. In fact, he finishes off the whole section by saying, see to it that the husband loves the wife as Christ loved the church, and that the wife respects her husband. And it wasn't the idea that husbands shouldn't respect their wives or that wives shouldn't love their husbands, but he knows that deep down, women have a need to be loved, that they want to feel like they're the most important, most special person to their husband. And a husband has a need, or men have a need, to be respected, to feel like you think that there's something. It's like, you know, I always say, when I take out the trash, I want to be that I take out the trash better than anybody else. And my husband, look at that man, take out the trash. He could take out the trash like nobody's business. Now, I'm just taking out the trash. But if she thinks I'm doing a good job, then that's all that matters. Because I don't care what you think if she thinks I'm doing a good job. And so he addresses this general principle of submit to one another and says, but you know what? Your needs aren't all the same, and the way this takes place will not always look the same for everybody. There will be different ways in which it takes place. So we do that because we recognize that there's not a hierarchy that's there, but there are different needs that are there. Just like, hopefully, you don't treat all of your children the same if you have more than one. If you have one, then you probably treat them all the same. But the kids aren't all the same. And you know, sometimes Jude and I, we get to laughing about it, about how totally different they can be. And one of my favorite stories, and I won't use the name of the couple because that would be rude, but there was a family that wrote a lot of books about how to raise children. And they were very proud of their methods, and everything could be done with one-step learning. You tell them, and they will, if you do apply the right things and raise your kids God's way, they would do. And this couple had 3 girls, and they would do conferences around. They would travel, and they'd bring those 3 girls up on stage in their dresses, and they were so well behaved and pretty, and stood there and showed what wonderful children that they were. And God who happens to have a sense of humor, if you didn't realize this, after they had built quite a business doing this, sent them a surprise child later on. He wrapped up a little bundle of a boy and sent it their way. And all these wonderful principles that they had were not working. In fact, this kid turned their house upside down. They stopped doing tours. They stopped writing books. And people stopped listening to the methods about how you're going to do this, to do it, because they recognize that, you know what, children are not all the same. If you've got three, very placid, docile children, well, good for you. You won the lottery. That if you've got this situation where you say to your kid, don't do that, and they say, oh, okay, I won't, I'm sorry. I guess that's awesome. I don't know. I've never experienced it. So we treat each other in different ways. And then he tells us now, we've talked about, here's how the family works. Now we're going to move on to children, as you can see, is the passage. Now I know that there might have been some children who decided, I don't want to go, because I know what that verse says. I know let's get right to it, so we can get right to the heart of what's going on here. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Let's close with prayer. No. I mean, this is like the parents' favorite verse, right? Is children, obey your parents. Why? Because it's right. It has that feeling of a heavenly, I told you so, doesn't it? Or the father saying, because I can. I'm the parent, that's why. Why? Because I told you to, that's why. And we don't like to hear that. But he starts out with children, love your parents in the Lord, for this is right. And we hear that, and we hear that as a thing that's being told to children, like, here's what you're supposed to be doing. And it is. But I think we miss something huge in that verse. Because what we miss is that we have a communication from God to children about how they will please him. And God is saying, listen, you're not just an addendum that's in here. You're not just coasting on your parents' faith or on their relationship with me. You're not just an add-on because you're a child in the family. He says, I've got a relationship with you, and I have something that you can do in relationship to me, and that is to obey your parents. Because he says there's times in life when you're in situations where you have very limited autonomy, but when you are in that, you act in a way that honors me, and you will be doing what I need you to do and be following after me. And I think children should grab hold of this verse and say, God has a message for me. He's telling me that I can relate to him directly, and there's things that I can do, and it's not about, well, just, I'm not supposed to, smoke, drink, cuss, chew, chase girls that sniff glue. It's not that. He's saying, I have a relationship with you. And to me, this is huge. This is huge because as a church, we have taken a covenant that we will value and honor our children, that we will make them important. And as we've looked at, because we've looked lots of places, because when our lease is up here and we go someplace else, and we've looked at lots of places, and many of the places we've looked at are things like schools. Can we meet in a school while we wait to get ready for something else? And they would tell us over and over again, well, you can use this room, but no other rooms. There's no room for the children to have Sunday school or do other things. And we have said consistently, then that's not where we want to go. We're not going to go to a place that does not have room for our children, because they are a vital, crucial part. They are as important as anything that takes place here among the adults. They are just as important. Some would argue that they're more important. I don't like to argue. That's not really true. I do, but we're not going to get into that right now. But the children are important. When we look for at the house, we have worked and worked and worked to try to find out what can we do with the building that's here, because we can't afford to build the final thing that we want to have for our plan. But what can we do with the space that we have to move forward? And I've worked on this for many hours, and one night I sit down with Judy and say, I'm thinking about doing it like this, and she does, well, why don't you just move these bathrooms over here, and then you get it. It was like brilliant. It's like, again, I'm thinking, why didn't I just ask her up front about how should we lay this out? Because she made this suggestion that we move the bathrooms. We looked at that. I took it to the architect. He goes, hey, this is really good. Yeah, we can really do this. And we found we can get an occupancy of up to 139 people in the space that's there by our certificate of occupancy, assuming that all their appropriate bodies approve all of that. But that's where we are right now. And we've got rooms for Sunday schools. Now they're going to be shared as offices. We've got a nursery that will be shared with me as my office. So fortunately on Sunday mornings I'm not in my office a whole lot, so I won't be disrupting the babies and all the others that are going on. And so we're doing some sharing of space for different things like that, but we've got a space for our kids. Why? Because God finds them extremely important. He gives them direct messages, and he tells them, here's things that you can do, but he's not saying, well, you know, just follow your parents. That's all that matters. He says, no, obey your parents. Because he has other places where he says to the parents, obey authorities. See, this is an adult principle that he gives a specific example of. The general principle is obey authorities. The specific example is for kids. That authority for you at this point in time is your parents. And we'll be looking, like next week, at some situations where how that looks when you're in a work situation. Because if you're, well, we'll get more into that next week, but sometimes the kids are like, you don't understand my parents. Obeying my parents is like a really dumb thing to do. And notice that it does say, obey your children in the Lord. He's not saying, just no matter what is told to you, no matter what is said, you do it without thought. Because some parents shouldn't be parents. Some people should not have children, and yet they do. Some children are left on their own to make for themselves. They would love to have a parent to obey, but there's not one that's giving them any direction that they can follow. So this isn't a thing where God's saying, turn off your brain and just do whatever your parents say to do. And of course, in reading that passage, the first thing it does is I start thinking the other passage that kept going through my head while I was reading that was out of 1 Timothy, the 4:12, the one that many of you are probably very familiar with. If you did it in the King James, it says, you know, let no one despise thy youth. A little bit more modern translation says, don't let anyone look down on you because you are young. I don't have a slide for it. Just trust me or open up your phone and look it up. We don't say Bible anymore. Nobody's carrying those, they're carrying their phones. Don't let anyone look down on you because you are young. And this is such an important thing to remember as young people. You are not getting ready for life. You are living life. Right now matters. I can't tell you how many times I've heard young people say, well, this is what you're supposed to do. You do this stuff, and then when you're old, you stop doing this stuff, and you have to grow up. And I'm telling you that what you do now matters. Don't let anyone look down on you because you are young, but set an example for the believers in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, in purity. Now, for you young people, is that how you would describe your life? That you are setting an example for the followers of Christ in speech, conduct, love, faith, and purity? Because you matter. People are watching now what you do. You are setting a path for your future. You don't set a path now and become an adult and suddenly jump onto a new path. I can trace some of my pathology back to stuff very early in my life. Areas where I have set a path that has been very hard to get off of. You're in your life now. You are living it. You matter. What you do now counts. And God wants you to live in a relationship with him. getting back to Ephesians, because then he goes on and says, honor your father and mother. This is the first commandment with the promise, that it may go well with you and that you may live long in the land. And you've probably heard lots and lots about this, because everybody goes, yeah. What, first commandment with a promise. We don't even have the time to get into all of what it means to honor your father and mother. But once again, it does not mean that you do everything that mom and dad want all the time. And this is really important for many of you who are adults and still have your mom and dad living. And the relationship is strained and things are tough, and you say, how do I honor them? How can I honor mom and dad when they behave so dishonorably? And this is a tough one. There's not an easy answer to this. But what I will say is that for children, and here I'm talking about younger people living at home under the authority of their parents, you honor them by obeying them. That's what honor is. And yeah, you can try to, usually when people are busy pulling out all the examples, well, my dad told me to go down to the store and buy him some alcohol, but he's an alcoholic, so I don't think I should do that. Okay, let's not talk about the examples. Your mother also told you to set the table, and you didn't do that either. Does she have a problem with table settings? You know, you were told to clean up your dishes after the meal, but you didn't do that. You were told to pick up your socks, and you didn't do that. And we love to go out to the examples and the extremes and say, yeah, but what if this happens? You know? What should I do then? And I would say, well, let's start with the examples you're living every day. Follow him in the little things, and he will guide you through the big things. But if you don't follow him in the little things, you'll not have a clue what to do when the big things arrive. When you honor your mother and father in the little ways, the bigger issues will become much clearer. And so I was going to suggest to you, whether you are still at home living with your parents and young, and you're having to obey, or whether you're fully grown, have children of your own, and your own parents are just, and maybe it's not something huge, maybe it's not some sort of big sin you can point to, they're just annoying. I don't understand. I would not be able to tell you anything about that, in case you're listening, Mom. But maybe it's just the sort of thing where you're just like, they keep haranguing for me to bring the kids over, and I'm over there twice a week with the kids, and my life is busy, and I got all this stuff going on. I can barely make it that twice a week, and every time I go, they make me feel guilty that I'm not there more often. How do I honor them? Do I have to show up every day for them to be honored? Well, no. You don't. But how you treat them as a person, how you talk about them to your children, it matters. So it's the little things. It's the little things that add up. And it's so interesting because he did the husbands and wives, he does the children, and then he finishes the children's section with a statement to fathers. And there is, in this entire passage, no statement directly to mothers. So, maybe there really is something to that about motherliness is next to godliness or something. I don't know, that moms have it all figured out and dads are the ones that are be left behind. But I don't know, but he has instructions for fathers. He says, fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. Why does he have to add that? What's that got to do with anything? Now, dads, if we're honest, we look inside, we kind of go, yeah, I get it. Because it's easy to provoke the kids to anger. After all, they provoked us to anger. Shouldn't it be fair to go the other way around? If they get me to that point. Now, one of the things I've been able to contribute to my children, which is not necessarily a good thing, but I've contributed it, is a thick skin. My kids, for the most part, developed a relatively thick skin. because their dad is just constant. You know, I pick on them. I evaluate everything. I told you I ruin all their songs by listening to the lyrics and challenge them on what they're hearing about. I tease them, although, I've taken into the regular practice from the time they were young to start to ask them, does this bother you? Is this offensive? Am I teasing you too much? And my daughter, who was always like, if you didn't tease me, I'd feel like you didn't love me, And I've got a son who's like, yeah, I don't like it. You say stuff to me about that. And so I don't tease him. And I'm still offensive, so that's but, it's just, the kids are going to be different, but dads, we can be one thing. And part of it's just the way I grew up. I grew up that the parents are right, the kids are wrong. It's like mom and dad know best. You do what they say, and you work. There's always chores, and there's things that you expect. I find myself frequently baffled at the work ethic that is present today. I find it surprising so often when after 15 minutes of work, a 20-minute break is necessary. There's just some things that are outside of my comprehension. And being the shy, withheld person I am, I tend to mention that to my kids when I'm like, we just got started. What do you mean you need a break? You've done 2 shovel scoops so far of snow, and you need to go in and warm up and have some cocoa? I don't think so. 2 driveways worth, okay, let's have some cocoa. 2 shovelfuls, and I think that by about now you should start getting warmed up for what's going to be coming. I realize, and I will admit, a lot of this is my pathology. There was a day this past week when I came home going, this is so nice, I'm going home early tonight. I'd only been at work for 9 hours. And I was coming home, and I'm sitting down at my computer to do some more work, and I was like, it's nice having a short day. And I realized there's something very sick about that, JD. Because I realized it had been 2 weeks straight that I'd worked 14 plus hours a day. And I was like, this is not healthy. And yes, if you're doing your math, well, that means you skipped a Sabbath. I did. I am a flawed, broken man. So I have a hard time understanding. And so I will push my kids. And you know what? I think at times I exasperate my children. I discourage them. Because I have an idea of how the world should work, and I want them to fit within that idea of how the world should work. And sometimes, get ready to gasp, I discipline them because they embarrass me, not because what they're doing is necessarily so bad. I know you would never do that. You would never look at your child's behavior and think, how does this reflect upon me, and therefore have some sort of a consequence or statement or idea of what they should do. Tattoos, piercings, cover that up, And you can, and this is not a statement about any of these things. What I'm looking at is, dads, do we provoke our kids to anger? Moms, you're allowed to ask yourself this question as well. You're allowed to ask, because the whole idea here is, you notice that the contrast, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. So it's not saying, let them do whatever they want. There should be no discipline. No, there should be discipline in the Lord. How are you disciplining? Why are you disciplining? Are you disciplining because you're angry, because you're embarrassed, because they didn't live out the dream that you couldn't live out, and you're mad at them because they didn't fulfill your ideas of what things should be? You never made it to be the quarterback, and so you push them really hard even though they hate football? Or you always like sports even if you're never good at them, but they like music? Not that you can't like both. So don't discourage them. Don't make them angry. Don't provoke them. That doesn't say that what you do in disciplining in the Lord, that they won't become angry. They probably will. When you have to say no, nobody likes to hear no. But children in their developing years need to hear no. And they need to hear it with some frequency. I used to create situations. You're all thinking I'm awful after it, but I would go into the store, and before I'd go into a store, when they were real little, and I would say it out of my way in to them, I said, this is a day when the answer is going to be no. Whatever it is you want, the answer is no. Because we go into the store, and they start grabbing things out. Oh, can we get this? Can we get that? No. No. Why? Because I want you to learn how to take a no. Can we not afford it? No, we can afford that. I could buy that rather easily. It would not be a problem. I don't even mind you having it. But what I really want is for you to learn how to take no. Because I think that's more important for you. That's what I'm giving you today, is the gift of no. Of course, in that, that does not result with the child going, oh, thanks, Dad. I really appreciate how you're just bringing me up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. Thank you so much. They go, you were so weird. I wish I lived with so-and-so. Wish they were my parents. I said, I wish that sometimes too. But God put us together, so we're stuck with each other. Let's make the best out of this. So, ask me tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow will be a yes day, and you'll say, I want to go live with those other family, and I'll say, yes, please. I used to joke, they said, well, what would you do if I got kidnapped? I said, I'd have to figure out what the ransom I would charge to get you back. How much I'd make those guys pay me to give you back over. After a half a day with you, they're going to start calling me up and saying, listen, we got your kid, but we're ready to drop him off. I said, no. Let's talk money first. You want me to take him back? See, you are starting to understand about how I can exasperate or make my children angry. And my wife would say, you shouldn't say things like that to them. They're going to feel bad. And I didn't think she was right, but often she was. Not always, because they got to understand it. And they also let me know that when I get old, I'm going into a nursing home. As soon as their mother's not in the picture, I'm in a nursing home. They don't care how old I am. I tell them I'm going to sit on their couch and pee myself when I get old, because I said I'm going to make up for all the times that I've had to do stuff. So we have fun in my house, sort of. I have fun in my house. What I want you to take away from all of this is that dads, you have certainly, and moms, but you got a big role in helping your children, because your job is to help them be successful in obeying you. So when you give them things to obey, don't make them stupid things. Don't set up a bar that's not unachievable. Don't make a scenario where they are going to have to, where they're going to have to go and lose face at school, where you're going to put them in an embarrassing situation where they have to look stupid amongst their friends. I've seen this happen a lot, and I think it's a tragedy. Because there is such a fragility about youth that we need to be protecting as parents. But there's also a tremendous strength in youth that you young people that are here need to recognize and say, God has got a message directly for you. And he says, you can honor me. You can have a relationship with me. You can be a leader from the position that you're in. And you are setting the path for the rest of your life. What are you going to be? And so he says, and your starting point is obey your parents. So let's pray. God, I just thank you that you have made families. I know it has been in so many ways this the joy and defining part of my life. The one job that I will never be out of, which is caring for and loving my family. And I pray for the young people, Lord, as so many of them, they just feel ineffective. And it's so hard to make the decisions that they need to make at a time in life when they haven't had the experiences or even the full neurological development to make all the decisions that they have to make. But Lord, you are there with them. and you call them to relationship with you. You call them to set examples and to be the ones that others can look at and say, that is what a follower of Christ looks like. In Christ's name, amen. All righty, it looks like we didn't get the one mic working, but this worked out okay. You know, I'll make sure we get a fresh thing and wipe it down before anybody else touches my mic. So thanks for coming. We will see you next week, or maybe I'll see you at the house during the week. So we'll see you then. Bye-bye.